Padres Hot Tub, everybody. Back together, reunited, and it feels good. I mean, I'm not going to say so good, but it feels good. Craig Elsten, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor. We are here. We are together. It's the off season. The playoffs are humming. The NLCS is happening, and our Game 1 watch party for Padres Phillies. Well, it was a little less than a year ago. It was a little less than a year ago. In fact, it was October 15th, 2022, that the Padres slayed the Dragon, beat the Dodgers, Game 4 of the NLDS. I'm dancing down the street, guffawing into the night air with John Gennaro. I'll never forget how I feel this day. And here it is, a year later, and I still remember. It was awesome. It was awesome.
It does feel like longer than a year, though.
Yeah. That baseball season felt like 3 years. I'm not going to lie.
I have many more gray hairs than I did before this season.
It's not just because you're aging and now married, Raphie. Not just for that.
I know. It's not just the normal passage of time. I wear glasses now. I didn't wear glasses at this time last year.
Just to fit in with the two of us, though. I understand.
Yeah,
those are glass
I just
frames.
step in line. Yeah,
hipster.
What
I
happened
understand.
to your eyes? I watched Matt Carpenter play.
Suddenly, I didn't want to see anything at Vision.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see anything out in the distance.
Brent Honeywell Jr. screwball. No one has.
All right, guys. Today's show is options on options. In the meat of the show, as we continue our long night, our off-season content, we're going to talk about the key team and player option, and sometimes team or player option contracts, the kind of immediate decisions once the World Series is over that AJ Preller is either going to have to confront or in one case have to passively accept. We will discuss all of that in the meat of the show. We'll talk some playoffs in the kind of like middle sliver there, and right now a very quick housekeeping parfait on top. Thanks for everyone who's watching on YouTube. Last week, when Raphie and I did 6 games that sunk the season, had all sorts of great video interlay as well. Don't forget, even if you're a podcast fan, you could just turn the show on YouTube, put it in your pocket as you're walking around, and then when you hear us talking about a game or something where we mention that we've got a graphic, pull it out of your pocket. Do it that way. YouTube Music works that way as well. So check out our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Of course, in season, plenty more content coming, short form content. We really dug into that at the end of the regular season. We'll continue to do that. We're approaching 1,000 followers. We're looking forward to that. Best way to support this show is on Patreon, patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Everything rolls through the off season. All sorts of dynamic discussion taking place on our Padres Hot Tub Discord over the weekend. Never mind fantasy content continuing. Right now, the only active league is, no, I'm going to lie. There's an NFL league going on right now. There's an NHL league that just started that's entirely patron run and directed. None of us have anything to do with the NHL league. There's, of course, the 3rd season of our Padres Hot Tub Survivor fantasy league that's going on. That's not NFL, folks. That's the actual show Survivor. We pick castaways. We don't pick the Buccaneers or the Rams. And NBA is about to start up for our 3rd season of NBA fantasy. So it's all happening. It's just $5 to get involved. Discord is a way cooler place to hang out than Twitter or X or Twex or anything combined. So come on over. And there's more people than Blue Sky still. So come on over. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Coming up soon, by the way, we're going to, because we've got a watch party channel. That's the overall the most traffic channel other than Padres. There's Padres channel, there's the watch party channel. Those are our 2 most traffic channels on our Discord. The watch party is where people try to enjoy the game and Tevin ruins their night most times. But hopefully that won't happen coming up, because we're going to be doing an off-season watch party. This will not be a game. This is going to be a movie. We're going to watch the iconic Cameron Crowe movie, Say Anything, with John Cusack and John Mahoney and Ione Skye. And we are just picking the date and time for that. So patrons, chime in on the Discord, but soon very soon, we're going to be doing that all together, clicking play all at once.
And let us know if you prefer weekends or weeknights. That's kind of the thing we're running into. We're just not sure. We want to get as many people in as we can. I want to see this movie pretty quickly. It's a movie that I've seen lots of memes from and enjoy all people involved, but have not sat down and watched it. So let's get this done. Holler at us in that watch party Discord.
I'm curious because we haven't really talked about the logistics of this. So are we all going to be like texting, or are like the three of us going to be on video chat? Like, how are we going to do this all at the same time?
You know what I think it could be? We should do it live. If we had it, I'd say live on Twitch. Like, you know what I mean? Like have the show, have the movie, and have us, and then everyone's just commenting in the chat. Is there any way that we could feed it through something like the Walrus or the post-game show stage? Something like that?
I don't want to upset the copyright gods. But
of course we wouldn't do that. We're a pro-labor podcast.
Of course.
But that's management, really.
That's corporate. That's corporate. Yeah. I was going to say, maybe, you guys ever listen to the Rewatchables, the Ringer podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe we do it Rewatchable style, where like we all watch it at the same time, texting each other, and then we hop on after, and then like, let's just do a chat after the movie airs. I know I froze for a second. Chat. Yeah, you totally we do a chat after the movie airs. You know what I mean? So we're texting each other, and then like we just kind of like, and then we like come on, break it down, et cetera, et cetera.
Kind of do like a group therapy for the
exactly.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it. We could do it either way. I mean, I was thinking of it as like everyone's together, getting our patrons together with it too. But like, listen, I'm up for ideas. Anyways, it's coming.
We can have it in the watch party. Everybody's watching it, and then go live right after,
and then do a podcast right after.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
I think that's what you said, and I just didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Got it. Some old over here, takes me sometimes, 1.25x. So got it. Great. Let's do that. Let's figure it out in the Patreon, in our Discord. We're going to do that. Look at all the fun stuff we do in the off season, gang. We do fun stuff. We do silly stuff and fun stuff in addition to the Padres stuff. I'd say there's more joy in off-season PHT than there is in in-season PHT, because there's a certain amount of anxiety during the season of folks kvetching over each play. It's kind of ridiculous when you back out and realize that how much energy and passion went into a bobble or one relief decision, and then you also remember that you could literally reverse any two results in the Padres' 162 game season from loss to win and put them right in the playoffs. Damn it. Okay. Speaking of playoffs. Guys, it's official. We fucked up.
Well, we did.
Not you and I. Not none of us. The Padres fucked up. In 2022, Bruce Bochy was right there. He was right there. He was a daggone old plum on the tree waiting to get picked. And we let big old Chris Young, that big old hoss down in Texas, grab him. And we did not get Bochy, the talisman of playoff success in the 21st century of Major League Baseball. Texas is 7-0. They're just careening to the World Series. It's Bochtober, and all I can think of is we screwed up. We got the wrong one.
Wasn't the reporting at the time that Bochy wanted nothing to do with the front office situation here, which does make me wonder, why was Bob Melvin okay with it if Bochy knew what was going on? Like, Bob Melvin's an experienced manager too, so I don't know. I mean, obviously he's coming from a very toxic situation in Oakland, but why would Bob say yes if Bruce said no? You know what I mean?
You know what? 3 rings. I think that's it. I think it's 3 rings. When you have 3 rings and you can go fishing the way that Bruce Bochy can go fishing, AJ Preller calls him. Yeah, I know. We'd really like to have you part of. Yeah, I know. Maybe again. Yeah, I know. And then you got Chris Young going like, "Hey, hey, Boch, my beloved former manager, could you please come be part of this ascendant flush with money project down here in Texas with no state taxes?
In Texas, let's come
no
hunt
state
some
taxes,
javelinas, no taxes.
Right. I think it was actually a slam dunk, and we probably could never have gotten Bruce Bochy unless AJ Preller was not the general manager. And that's not even really, honestly, a dig at AJ. I think it's just facts. Like AJ Preller is obviously a strong hand GM, and Bruce Bochy don't got time for that. Come on. He had a partnership with Brian Sabian. He had a partnership with Kevin Tower. He wasn't going to come into an adversarial relationship with AJ Preller.
My only screw up is when I was texting with my gambling degenerate brother-in-law back in March when I visited my mother in Las Vegas, and I went to the sports book and went, I think I can get better odds on the Rangers than plus 1,800 or whatever it was to win the AL. And I just put it aside and never did it. But I knew this was going to happen. I knew Bruce Bochy was going to turn that around. They actually had put money into the team. I thought they were going to be just like the Padres and the Mets, competing for the championship at the end of the day. And I didn't bet it. And now I'm broke.
Texas has been great. They've just been really good. But also, people now are like, well, Jordan Montgomery is the top of the class now for free agent pitchers. I'm like, Jordan Montgomery has pitched really good for like 2 weeks and a couple months before that.
He's made some money.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's made a lot of money. What he did yesterday and the way he pitched Jordan Alvarez, I mean, that was tremendous. But come on. It's the postseason. Literally, it's a different mantra, okay? We already know baseball is stupid and no one should watch. But it's fine to watch the playoffs. The playoffs are fun. But the playoffs are stupid and no one should care. See how the sentence changes? The playoffs are stupid and no one should care. Thankfully, I didn't get to read it today, but The Athletic had a Britt Garoli, like Braves, what happened? And the sub headline was like, what happened to the Braves? Could it just be nothing? And it's like, yes. The answer is it could just be nothing. I want to give you two things from two very smart people that encapsulate this perfectly. The first is my friend Joe Sheehan. Joe Sheehan in the Joe Sheehan newsletter earlier this week, under the caption of a post that read, "There are no upsets. There are no upsets in the playoffs," said something that is statistically accurate and incredibly simple. It is it's literally derivative, but it makes perfect sense. If you take the 12 playoff teams in baseball and you grind their records down to a 5-game sample, you have 12 3-2 teams.
Yeah.
That's what you have.
And this is such a good point. I already heard it on Effectively Wild, too. They gave Joe credit. They gave Joe credit as well.
Did they? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect point. It's a perfect point. Everyone's 3-2 if you look at it in a 5-game sample. And you know what the Royals would be? 2-3. They'd be 2-3. They'd be 2-3. Okay. Here's the second one. And this came Eno Saris last Thursday on the beloved Ben and Woods program on FM 97.3 The Fan. He said to bake out the luck quotient in the playoffs and to get to the point where you had kind of like the same statistical deviation as the regular season, it needs to be best of 75.
I was going to guess like 31, 75.
Best of 75. So, hey, we're down 35-2, but we're still in this thing. Just need to clear the next 30 and get them nervous.
Specifically, I think it's because was referring to a Fangraphs article that I don't know, he might have wrote or something a while ago, but it was comparing the playoffs in the major American sports, and it's in the NBA, the higher seed advances something like 80% of the time. And it was like, what's the equivalent? Yeah, it's like, how many games would you have to play so that the higher seed in baseball wins 80% of the time, and it's a 75-game series?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. In order to get to the 80-20 better team advancing scenario that in basketball a 7-game series creates, we'd need a 75-game series in baseball. Everyone's 3-2, 75 game series. That's all you need to know. Or if you TLDR, playoffs are stupid and no one should care. Doesn't matter. Like I keep looking again. I keep looking at these playoffs. What if the Padres did exactly what they were supposed to do? Realized their potential. Realized it. Won 96 games this year. Rafe, stat check. Would 96 games have passed the Dodgers?
No, right? How many wins did
Dodgers
they have?
won 100, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they won 100.
Now, I'm being cherry picky because obviously a 96-win Padres season could include 4 wins or 3 wins more against the Dodgers that pulls their number down. So I understand that you could poke a hole in this, but my point, I think, still holds. The Padres could have won 14 more games this year, and unless the layout was just right in relation to LA, they would not have been any higher than the 4 seed, in which case they could have hosted the ascendant Phillies. The 5 seed, have the Phillies drop the lumber on them the way they've dropped the lumber on every team they've played this year. And we would look at this season like completely differently as this shocking collapse and this disappointment that's even more painful than 6 months of jumping the clutch, trying to shift from first to second gear, which is what we experienced. Like me trying to learn stick shift as a 15-year-old is basically the 2023 Padres season. But instead it would have been like, no, we are him, we are them, we are this team. And then, oh my God, the Phillies just came and ate our lunch in 2 games. And Harper hit 3 home runs and our season was over in 2 games. And now what the hell do we do? And we're, it's like, all of these results are the same. They're all the same, getting swept in 2, going 7-0. Any result is the same in the playoffs. It's just a fun little thing that we do at the end, and they give out a piece of tin. Maybe Manfred was right.
I mean, I'll do you one better, Craig, and say if we talked about it last week, if Juan Soto's looping opposite field fly ball on a scheduled doubleheader in August, when there's a hurricane coming in and the barometric pressure is insanely weird in San Diego, flies 5 feet further over the fence, and the Padres are instead 83-79 and hold the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks, they could be in Philly right now getting homered on by the entire Philadelphia lineup. But they were getting hot at the exact right time, which is all that the playoffs is. I mean, Texas and Philly are hot, and that's the way that we have decided to determine what championships are in the sport.
That's exactly right. And, by the way, and not for nothing, everyone who says, oh, it's the layoff, F you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. I mean, or it is. Who knows? Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean,
Spencer Strider said this best on a team just full of excuses. Spencer Strider said, "It is on us to be focused and prepared in a way that has us ready to play when when the series starts. And if we can't do that, that's on us. It's not on anything else."
And you know what? I bet that the Braves were focused, prepared, and ready. I bet their training staff had them in ultimate position. I bet their coaching staff had them ready to go. I bet their analytics staff had everything they needed, and everyone was ready, and the Phillies outplayed them. And they lost because it was 4 games. And that happens literally all the time in baseball. It happens all the time. But we assign meaning to this. Bryce Harper is heroic, and other people are craven, and this, that, and the other thing, because of nonsense. So two quick things. Having said, with all of those caveats heavily laid, don't anything I say about the playoffs, none of it matters. But for everyone who's just completely anointing Texas, including me, I want to remind myself that Houston was bad at home all season. All season. They were inexplicably bad at home. And the fact that their ballpark literally cost them a game yesterday with their goofy cutaway field when Bregman hit a home run, but because they do this weird dip in left center, it wasn't a homer. Instead of a natural curve, they do this like, and that's exactly where the ball went.
No, I need a right angle right there. Just needed.
I could 100% see Max Scherzer being overextended, stepping into game 3 and over adrenalized in front of a home crowd and getting absolutely cooked by Bregman or Alvarez or one of the big hitters for Houston, and then seeing one of their fourth starter, Christian Javier, just completely lock it down, and all of a sudden it's 2-2, and it's swinging back to Verlander, and Verlander knows how to win. Like I could see it swing back and Astros in 6 just as easy as Texas in 4. It just literally would take one win. Houston, I heard Joe Davis say this, Texas, pardon me, had like 6-game and 8-game losing streaks in September twice.
Yeah.
They were just wildly uneven.
Yeah,
so
media was calling them dead. Their bullpen's not going to get. Their bullpen's gone. It's gone.
Yeah, now Jose Leclerc is suddenly clutch.
Yeah,
because he's doing it. So all of it's meaningless. And it's. I don't feel the same way though. Weirdly about Philadelphia, I kind of feel like Philadelphia is just going to absolutely eat Arizona's lunch.
Yeah, they feel like a team of destiny, man. They just got it all going, and those bats, like. I've talked about it a few times. The Phillies had their 4 bats, but now it's like 6. I mean, because guys are hot. Because Castellanos is feeding off of all the strife and horror in the world, and it makes him stronger.
I believe that. I actually believe that when you say it. He's got a negative energy power field that is inescapable. So yeah, Philly is everywhere, everything all at once. They're just. They're ridiculous. I kind of think they're going to win it all this year. But here's the last thing, and I just want to be really quick about this. But fuck the Braves.
Yes, this is what I was trying to say.
Fuck the Braves, and very specifically, fuck off Orlando Arcia. Fuck off Travis d'Arnaud. Kevin Gossman on Twitter X, whatever. You can straight fuck off. And Alana Rizzo, with all due respect, which is none, fuck the fuck off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Rafe?
Yeah. She was talking about podcasters and just random people. Bloggers. Yeah, just completely disrespecting anyone who's not like old school traditional journalism and saying they don't have a right to be in the locker room. Yeah, exactly.
Jake Mintz from Cespedes Barbecue is an every other week guest on Ben and Woods. He is an accredited member of the Baseball Writers Association of America. He writes columns for Fox. I think it was Fox. Maybe it was Yahoo. I think
Fox
it was
Sports.
Yahoo.
Yeah, Fox Sports.
It was Fox Sports. Okay. He writes columns for Fox Sports. He is there to cover the series, and he's in a publicly open clubhouse where Orlando Arcia, with cameras, by the way, players know when cameras rolling. There's a big fucking light on the top. Okay? There's a big light, and it's on people's shoulders. When they're off, they're held to the side because they're heavy. All right? So everyone knows, unless it's your first day in baseball, when the cameras are rolling. And he knew cameras are rolling. He knew his clubhouse had just been filled with 75 to 125 reporters. And he's in there going, attaboy, Harper, attaboy. And God forbid, why wasn't it in the Washington Post, the New York Times, the LA Times, the Philadelphia Inquirer, right? The Atlanta Journal-Constitution? Why hadn't everyone put it in their game story? I don't know. Maybe because they're all
nothing. It's so innocuous.
It's nothing. It's no big deal. It's a little bit of color, right? But it's part of reporting. And look, the basic of this is extremely simple. It's extremely simple. I'm not adding anything to the conversation by saying I support Jake Mintz and he did the right thing. All of baseball essentially rallied around that opinion. Alana Rizzo just stuck her foot in her mouth in the most ridiculous way possible on high heat. And she's got a lot of pathetic opinions, to be honest. And my respect level for her in the last decade has dropped immensely. But regardless of that, I mean, what she did was terrible. going after Jake. And
Her swing's too long, Craig. She has too big of a swing
Right.
for such appearances.
But what really gets me, and I've got a specific point about this. Arcia says what he says. Mint says what he says. Now Harper gets mad. Now Harper hits 2 home runs. He stares at Orlando Arcia. This is theater. This is wrestling. This is beautiful. It's good. It's all good for baseball. Someone put their foot in their mouth. Another player reacts. This is great drama. It's outstanding. But these whiny, pissy little excuse makers, these little children, these spoiled children, start to say this nonsense. Oh, this is a sacred space. How dare, if that's not said directly in a microphone, how dare you report it? And Kevin Gossman, who's not even a Brave, it's a fucking Blue Jay, is out there going, well, I think it's just the locker room's a sacred space, and if you don't say that. This is social media's fault, all right? Normally, I'd like to blame the breakdown of locker room dynamics and the formerly at least decent relationship between the press and pro sports on Bill Belichick. And I do honestly believe Bill Belichick ruined the relationship forever in America between pro sports teams and players and coaches and the professional media. But this is not that. Even when I was starting in baseball, even when like the first times I was in a locker room, like the mid-90s, there would be some dumb, stuck-up kid that would probably think something stupid like this. And they might even say it in the clubhouse, either to a reporter or to the team when the reporter, when something was written the next day. I can't believe this, sacred space, blah, blah, blah. And then the veteran on the team would go, what the hell are you talking about? This is how it works, man. When the reporters are in the clubhouse, anything you say is on the record. And anything you do is on the record. So if you don't want to say something stupid that is in the paper, don't say it while the reporters are in the clubhouse. When they're out of the clubhouse, say and do whatever you want. But while they're in there, they're doing a job, and their job is to report what you say. And that literally would be a thing. That would be Trevor Hoffman talking to the rookie catcher who's angry, or the rookie reliever who's angry because something was reported. Hey, this is the way that this goes. Or it would be Matt Williams sitting down in the Giants clubhouse and saying, kid, come over here. This is how shit works. But now, in the age of social media, some dummy can say something and go, well, this is a sacred space. And now if you don't back up his opinion, now you're turning your back on your teammate. Now you're contradicting your teammate in the middle of a playoff run. And so it's this hive mind mentality. And now once Orlando Arcia and Travis d'Arnaud are out there, and Kevin Gossman is out there saying on X, oh, well, this is a sacred. Well, now if you're a player and you go, no, that's bullshit. Now you're kind of fighting back against the fraternity. And I really think that this type of thing used to be a dumbass rookie or a drunk ass veteran would go, I think, and then the veteran would go, shut up, you. And then that would be it. But now, once it gets public, everyone's got to back their teammate, or else, hey, you're not backing your teammate.
I think it goes to guys like Jake and Bryce Harper have figured out what modern baseball audiences want, like why we watch the game, what excites us about it. And that's why, Cespedes Family Barbecue is one of the better thought of names in baseball media these days. They're one of the accounts I follow. I listen to their podcast. And Bryce Harper is one of the most intriguing players in the game. He brings theater to all of it. He may have this weird macho thing that's, his hair probably smells better than mine, but he looks like a lumberjack. And he's figured out ways to be compelling. And Travis d'Arnaud's not that compelling. Orlando Arcia, not compelling. And Alana's really trying to be compelling and failing because she thinks she's in the fraternity. She reminds me of some military wives I know that think they're in it just as much as they're dudes. But they're not. It's pretending. I'm glad she apologized. Let's give credit to where that's due. She didn't try to blame anything else besides being dumb and saying something stupid. So give her that credit at least. We haven't seen that from Orlando Arcia or Travis d'Arnaud own up to being petty and making excuses about being losers in the playoffs. I still just go back to, I don't even like, I can see why Bryce Harper would take a tiny bit of offense to it, having made a mental miscue that didn't cost his team a game, but ended it maybe prematurely. Like, that's the only person who should be any bothered by this at all. He's a face of the game, and Orlando Arcia is friggin' nothing. The next game, Orlando Arcia was chirping back at fans in the crowd, and he looked like such a petulant little 8-year-old. He literally put his fingers up like this and stuck out his tongue and went, "Bleh." And Ronald Acuña's right next to him, like physically grabbing him around the neck, going, "No, watch the fucking game, man. That's what we're here for." Like, all this is nonsense. And I don't care if he learns that lesson or not. He's a Brave. I hate the Braves. I'm a child of the 90s.
Fair.
I'll always hate the Braves. But yeah, fuck them all, man. Like, I want the most compelling voices reporting what they hear, because we don't get to see what these dudes are actually like unless reporters tell us. That goes to the Padres and a lot of the analogs. Like, I want to hear what's going on, because it helps explain failures. It helps explain the Braves' catastrophic failure in this series, that they have guys that are so easily distracted and speaking out of turn like Arcia did.
Orlando Arcia, existentially dead. Go read Siddhartha. Okay, let's get to the meat of this. We managed, as we always do, we managed to go a half hour on the stuff that I thought we'd take 12 minutes on. Totally my fault every time. By the way, it's 100% my fault, 100% of the time. So let's get to options on options. We've got 4 players that have either player or team options for 2024, or in 2 cases, a team option followed by a series of player option decisions. Let's go through these guys, and I think let's go from easiest to hardest, because Matt Carpenter was signed to a 2-year, $12 million deal, $6.5 million this year, and a player option for $5.5 million next year. And no matter what the Padres want to do, Matt Carpenter can pick up that option and get paid $5.5 million. Gentlemen, I would suggest that the best course of option for the San Diego Padres is to invite Matt Carpenter to spring training, to make it pretty clear, maybe on the morning of February 16th, that he will not make the team, and say, well, what do you want to do, Matt? What would you like to do? Would you like us to designate you for assignment? Would you like us to play you for 3 weeks and see if we can find a trade on B fields and in B games at Peoria? But just understand, when March 30th or whatever it is comes around, you're not going to be on the Padres, on the team in 2024. How would you like us to handle this for you? And that's how I would do this. I would not say like, oh, Carpenter got LASIK surgery and went to Pilates this offseason, and he's in the best shape of his life and quite possibly might be our DH in 2024.
I wonder if he's going to take the Ian Kinsler route of retiring and then immediately joining the Padres front office to be special assistant to special assistant to special assistant to the general manager. But no, I mean, again, it's like I suspect he'll be on the same beach in Cancun with Eric Hosmer. Getting paid Seidler's buku bucks very shortly. I did pull a stat that I wanted to ask you guys. So Matt Carpenter had 237 plate appearances last season, which somehow feels like too much and also not enough given how much he played. I wondered, of players who played 80% or more of their games at designated hitter, how many players do you think performed worse offensively than Matt Carpenter?
Wow.
With that many plate appearances, 237 or more.
237 or more.
Mm-hmm.
How many individual players played worse?
Yeah.
That feels like a clue.
when they played 80% or more of their games at designated hitter.
Yeah, that's the tough thing because I'm coming up with guys who play a lot of first base, and Matt Carpenter plays nowhere.
Like, could Miguel Cabrera have been worse
No.
this year?
Really?
Like one or two? I would guess maybe like one or two.
Yeah, that's where I go to.
It is kind of a trick question. No one
of
was
course not.
worse.
course not.
But your instinct was correct. Miguel Cabrera was the second worst. So Matt Carpenter had an 81 OPS plus this season. Carpenter had an 86 Miguel Cabrera had an 86 OPS plus, and there were two more players who played 80% of their games at designated hitter who had an OPS plus below 100. If either of you guys get this, I would be very impressed.
Is it G-Man Choi? I don't know.
No. I'll give you their teams. One of them played on the Twins, and the other played on the Nationals.
Wow.
Okay, so the Twins. No, Jose Miranda was gone by then. I know he sucked.
Yeah,
I should know.
I would have thought like
the
a
Twins.
Kirilloff or a Kepler or something like that.
No, but he played outfield. This
Yeah,
is
you're
straight DH, right, Raphie?
80% or more of games as a designated hitter. Yeah.
I'm gonna stump on Twins.
I got nothing, man.
I'll stump on Nationals too.
This was the interesting one for the Twins. Byron Buxton, because he, of course, was injured for a lot of this year. So that prevented him from playing anything else besides designated hitter. Byron Buxton was the one for the Twins.
He hit worse.
God, I almost said that. Said that.
No.
Dang
He had a 98 OPS plus. I'm just talking about guys who played as designated hitter who were worse than league average. There's one more on the Nationals who was a 99 OPS plus. So just
like
under league
Meneses or
average.
something? Or?
It's exactly who it was, Joey Meneses.
Okay.
Very, very well done. Yeah, so 4 guys. There are only 4 guys in baseball who were 80% or more of the time as designated hitter, who played as much or more than Matt Carpenter, who were below league average. And Carpenter's like so much worse. 176 batting average, 322 on base, 319 slug. That infamous Austin Nola award for on base percentage higher than slug. Matt Carpenter got it as a designated hitter this year. So not great.
Yeah, so I mean, right? No discussion, nothing to be done. Just get rid of this guy. Right. If you can make him Mark Loretta's water boy, great. In the front office and save anything. If you saved $1 million doing that, that would be incredible. Right. But why would Matt Carpenter take one dime less than $5.5 million? The Padres gave it to him.
He won't.
He should take it. He should go on the 60-day disabled list.
He's going to text the league office at 12:01 on the day that that he's allowed to say he's opting in, and he's going to say he's opting in.
Absolutely. And then, the most likely thing is that he will suffer a thigh injury on March 26th that lingers all the way through the season. But I would hope that the Padres would do what I said, and on February 16th, just get together for coffee and be like, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep playing? We'll release you. Do you want to move into the front office? Save us some money. We'll do that. We'll grace you out. But you're not going to be on the team March 30th. So what do you want to do? And that's Matt Carpenter.
You don't think there's any benefit to seeing if he can go to on a nationwide in an RV to all the shamans and the gurus of the hitting coaches and come into spring training, and just see if he rekindles a little bit of that 22 magic? Because the money's spent, it's gone.
It's gone. Well, if Chloe Zhao can film it and Frances McDormand is in the RV as well, I think yes.
She'd like that mustache.
Quite possibly. That could be. I feel like he could star in a rugged independent film as a romantic interest that is introduced in the second act.
Just for curiosity, I wanted to see what the Padres could expect to get for a veteran around $5.5 million. And you know what the most amazing name that comes up to fill the Matt Carpenter spot in the potential roster? Joey Votto. Spotrac thinks his market value is going to be about $5.5 million.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Because Joey Votto is going to skip his one-team career in Cincinnati to spend one season as our platoon DH.
Not at all. Not at all. But like, that's like, just what a clear upgrade that would be. You know, like, just highlighting what a mistake it was to dedicate $5.5 million to a guy who's going to be 38 and does not put on a glove playing baseball.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Seth Lugo. Seth Lugo is a very similar conversation, but in reverse. Seth Lugo was signed on a speculative deal that included a player option for 2024. And in the classic reverse risk situation that A.J. Preller loves to put himself in and that we talked about, Seth Lugo massively outperformed what was anticipated of him this year, and now his player option looks like an absolute joke. He's not going to pick that up. He's going to decline it. The same minute or second that Matt Carpenter's fax comes through, Seth Lugo's will be competing for that bandwidth at the MLB office to decline his player option and enter free agency. So I approach you guys with not the question of what should be done with the option. It's the same thing. The option we know. The question is there a world, a price, a situation where either of you would entertain the Padres re-signing Seth Lugo to a 3+ year Major League contract?
Not for 3 years for me personally. And I'm worried about giving him basically anything other than saying, hey, let's just run your deal back and give you like 2-year, $15 million with a year, 7.5 each with the player option, which he would probably turn down because he can probably get more on the market. The dude threw 146 innings a year after throwing 65 innings. And also he's about to turn 34. And so you would be paying for his age 34 to 36 seasons. And I was curious how on average this season, age 34 to 36 starting pitchers performed. Collectively, they put up a 4.38 ERA and a 4.47 FIP, which is not as bad as I thought it was going to be completely honest. But he's one of those guys that got a little bit lucky on his batted ball skills. His expected slug this year was 442. The league average is 405. It's actually one of his worst career numbers. He definitely was someone who benefited from playing in marine layer blanketed Petco Park. To me, like, this is a classic AJ Preller trap contract where it's like Carpenter made the same thing where like AJ sees a flash in the pan, he gets excited, and then he overcommits. And I could see AJ Preller making the same mistake that he made with Matt Carpenter and just saying like, okay, we had a flash of the pan success season, tools, everything. Like, let's recommit for this guy, and him just completely falling off because Darvish and Musgrove are already potential injury risks. Like, you can't, I think, attach a ticking time bomb to the starting rotation again. So that's why I'm kind of in the take the W and let him go camp for me personally.
I'm both feet in that camp with you, Raphie. And for the reason you said, his usage this past year as a guy who's going to be 34. You know, Ruben Niebla helped him. I think Ruben Niebla can help another veteran that might need to find another gear to be successful. And Spotrac puts Seth Lugo's anticipated AAV almost at exactly $10 million a year. He's going to get more than 1 year. You know, I'd love it if, we can run it back, but I don't think he lives in that world. Seth Lugo wants to make the money that he possibly can while he's a Major League Baseball player, which means he's going to get a couple years at bare minimum. And at $10 million a year, the Padres just don't have that when we're talking about cutting payroll and keeping other players. So I'm going to take the W, man. It didn't work out the way we want as a team, but Seth Lugo was one of the bright spots.
All right, look, you know, and everyone who listens to this show knows that I agree with your guys' point of view, and I've said that we need to work on finding the next one of these guys and trusting the process as opposed to committing to these guys. So this is a pure thought exercise, devil's advocate type thing. Okay.
Well, fuck you, Craig.
Okay, let's move on. No, like there's one person who could change my mind on this, and that's Ruben Niebla. Because while generally I'm 2 feet in on the camp of when you go to from 65 to 146 innings, you're like 99% to regress the next year. The one guy who might turn me on this is if Ruben Niebla is like, no, we've figured this out. Seth Lugo's a big boy. He's not, a fading flower. He's not small in stature. He's 6'4", 225 pounds. He's a big dude. He hasn't had a ton of work on his arm, and potentially these are just innings that could have been sapped out of him in his early and mid-20s that have been preserved for the mid to late 30s when he's going to excel. Unlike hitters that quite classically fall off a cliff at 30, 31, there is the potential for a pitcher to pitch well into his mid, late 30s, and certain guys can go until they're 40. I mean, look at Scherzer, look at Verlander. These are guys starting in the playoffs in the championship series right now. Obviously, that's the top of the top of the top. But
well, I'll throw like a guy who's gonna be in a little less of a value than him. But look at Wade Miley. He's 38. He had a solid season, putting up nearly 2 WAR from Milwaukee, and he's going to be around. He has a $10 million option for next year that's probably going to get declined. He's going to get a couple million less than that. But when you compare Lugo to that, I do hear you.
And that's all. I really thought Seth Lugo, like, truly improved as the year went on. And it seemed like a lot of that had to do with Niebla, and had to do in particular with how Niebla was working on his cutter, right? Because before, for Lugo, it was the four-seamer tunnel off of the curveball tunnels off the four-seamer. But if you're not locating the four-seamer at the top of the zone and tunneling the curveball off of that top zone heater, it wasn't working for him. All of a sudden, the cutter was changing people's perspectives. He's moving left to right when everything else was either straight or up and down. And it really seemed to change what he did. I also thought he was, after like May, pretty much, other than Snell was consistently 6 innings, no runs. Lugo was the guy that was like, if you're going to count on 6 or 7 innings, it's going to be Seth Lugo. And he's usually going to give up 2 or 3 runs. And like, Lugo was really, really good. But I'm with you guys, so it's 3-0. Like, let him go to free agency. Let someone else sign him to a 3-year deal. I'd say there's a 35% chance that Lugo continues to pitch well and outperforms a contract like that. And I think there's a 35% chance that Seth Lugo has Tommy John surgery next year.
Yeah. I did want to point out and give you and Ruben Niebla credit for talking about him making adjustments and being better as the year went on. He threw his curveball in April 37% of the time, and that number went down to 20.2% by the end of the season in September. And likewise, he was throwing his fastball about the same amount, 35% to start the season. That went down a little bit to 30, but he started throwing his sinker way, way, way more, to the point where he was throwing it more than his curveball by the end of the year. And he was throwing sinkers to righties and fastballs to lefties. And I just think you saw him and Niebla get a kind of familiarity with one another. So I am intrigued. Again, like Spotrac has his estimated contract at 3 years, 29.5. So like just about the amount that I would be kind of willing to do. I don't know, maybe, but then it's I just can't do it. I just can't. There's a decent chance he's not pitching for 50% of that.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just like the team's talking about not spending money, and you can't you can't go throwing $10 million. That's 10 guys. That's 11 guys making the minimum. Try out 11 different guys who might make the minimum.
Seth Lugo, tough spot. If the Padres did find a deal like that, if you told me they signed Seth Lugo to a 3-year, $30 million deal, don't tell me that all three of us aren't going to come on the show and figure out a way to justify it. Because we will. We will. Yeah. We absolutely will. They signed him to a 4-year, $75 million contract. We'd all rip the hell out of it and say it was absolutely ridiculous. But there are levels to this, and there's a level in which Seth Lugo makes sense. I just think he might get more from somebody, and I'd love him to go be the Royals starter or someone else next year. These next two ones, by design, are tricky. They're friggin' tricky. So either one of them's tricky in a different way, but let's start with Michael Wacha, because this is one that I know each of us has gone on a journey with at some point during this season. Michael Wacha at the end of the year puts up a 2.4 B-WAR season. What's the F-WAR number? I know we're supposed to be F-WAR affiliated. What's the number, Rafe? Sure you got it. He's looking it up.
Sorry, you cut out. What were you saying?
What's Wacha's F-WAR? Because I have Baseball Reference up. I'm very bad.
2.6.
Okay,
F-WAR.
so he actually did better. He did better
Yeah.
in F-WAR. So there you go. So 2.6 F-WAR, 3.22 ERA in 134 innings, a 1.16 whip, 24 of 33 starts, right? So missed 8 to 9 starts over the course of the year, but he made 24 starts, which, about 2/3 of the time Michael Wacha posted up. He's building a resume because that's a 3.32 and an 11-2 record in 127 innings, followed by a 14-4 with a 3.22 in 134 innings. So that's some nice consistency at age 30, 31 to be putting together kind of the same year back to back, but in Fenway and Petco. I like that. And there were points at the middle of the year that it seemed pretty clear that 2 years, $32 million club option would be a little bit much. But let me know, Rafe, because I kind of feel like at the end of the year, when you got to player value at 2.6 F-WAR, isn't it 10 million in F-WAR?
No.
Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I just have problems with those figures because the real contracts don't wind up matching the $10 million. Like, from what I've seen, it's like 5 to 8.
Yeah.
If it was 8, let's just say it was 8, then 16 million absolutely is a value pay.
Yeah,
for
Fangraphs
Wacha.
usually uses 8 million as their basis. I thought it was so interesting because the same model that said that Seth Lugo was worth like 3 years and 29 million has Michael Wacha at 3 years and 54, which is I think a combination of, in their model they probably weight age a lot more. Michael Wacha is 3 years younger than Seth Lugo is, so he's going to be in his age 31 season. The thing I'll say about Michael Wacha from a workload standpoint is that he quote unquote only threw 134 and a third innings this year. That was the most he's thrown since 2017 in a season. However, he's incredibly consistent in terms of his somewhat limited workload. He always throws at least 120 innings, and he rarely throws more than 140. So you can kind of count on somewhere in that range getting a decent amount of value. He would have to pitch basically like he does this season, like he did this season, if he's going to throw that many innings over the next few years, for it to pay off. So I don't know. I'm in the restructure camp more than anything. I don't necessarily think that the club option is the right move because, again, it's just like he could revert back to being 2021 Michael Wacha, and all of a sudden that contract is a massive dud. So I would maybe try and restructure with him first. And if he really feels confident, test the market. But that's a lot of money. It's $16 million per is a lot of money when we're cutting payroll.
Michael Wacha made a lot of money in May. He had an amazing May when you go back and look at it. 0.72 whip, 3 earned runs, over 32 innings pitched. That was an amazing month. That was a guy that could be a bedrock of a rotation. When you flash forward to September, after he came back from having a tired shoulder, it's not as pretty. That it's 1.33 whip with 16 earnings over 33 innings. That's like a 4.5 ERA just about. And that's when they're going to need him the most. We've already got Yu Darvish as a front of the line starter, and he hasn't been incredibly healthy the last couple late in the seasons, especially this year. So I just think they if they're going to be putting the investment of that much money into a foundational piece, Michael Wacha's a weaker brick than they want. He's a luxury. He's a luxury for one of these teams that's going to spend $100 million this offseason. And the Padres, they're not in that club, guys.
Okay, another devil's advocate moment. Okay, but building off of what Raphie was just talking about and the consistency of workload. Another pitcher who in an 8-season career averages 124 innings per season?
Blake Snell.
Jacob DeGrom.
That's Blake Snell.
Blake Snell.
Blake Snell. No, DeGrom's like 40 innings this season.
Okay.
I mean, Blake Snell, 124 innings a season. And when someone signs him to a 6-year, $200 million contract,
DeGrom
there's
contract.
like a good, solid 65% chance that 1 or 2 of the next 3 seasons he'll pitch less than 140 innings. Because that's Blake Snell. That's Blake Snell going 4 and 5 and 4 and 5 over and over again as he gets to 80 and 100 pitches. So when we're looking for, I've said Immaculate Talk is kind of in hiatus now, but I've said it a million times over there. Like, if you could just put early mid-career Jack Morris on the modern free agent market, what would it be worth? To have a starter that could just lock in 270 innings a year, every year. So for the next 10 years, this guy you sign is going to pitch, on average, 258 innings every single season. Like, what's that worth today? It's worth a gazillion dollars. Michael Wacha, on one level, and this is where Lugo is too, on one level, you can make a very logical, factual, value-based argument that 2 years, $32 million makes sense and is appropriate for this player at this time. But I also look at what Chris says. I look at his first half versus second half. I look at even his July and August before his September, and I go, do I want to roll into October with Michael Wacha as my third starter when he could just be a faded flower that fades a little bit more and dims a little bit more every year? Probably the answer is no. Probably the answer is there's another pitcher that I don't know yet that at 2 years, $32 million would be a better value than Michael Wacha. But just like Lugo, on the face, he looks like he's worth this money.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say was, and this is the one thing that I think when I was doing some research for this episode really blew me away and I wasn't expecting. There's a website called Pitcher List, and they, like Stuff Plus or, Pitching Bot, they have their own proprietary metric that's, based on a pitch's shape and the way it moves and its speed relative to a fastball. It gives every pitcher a rating, essentially. Michael Wacha's changeup, according to that metric, for starting pitchers, was not the best changeup. It was the best pitch. The best pitch in baseball for starting pitchers. StatCast is not quite as high on it. It ranked it as the 15th best pitch in baseball. But But still, Michael Wacha has an unbelievable changeup, and he threw it 34.5% of the time this year. And obviously, as it grew more effective, he threw it more and more. So on the one hand, that makes me really excited. On the other hand, all of his other pitches were mid at best, if not bad. I mean, his fastball at one point was rated as one of the worst fastballs in the league. And what happens when hitters adjust to him next year? What happens when hitters just are like, you know what? I'm not even going to try and touch, a good changeup obviously is going to tunnel off of a fastball, so you won't have the luxury of that choice. But, this is a game of adjustments. And eventually baseball is going to adjust to his changeup at some point. And when that happens, that's what scares me. I don't want to be left holding the bag when that happens, Craig.
I just want to point out, we always are quick to rag on the guy. This was a damn good contract by AJ Preller. It's a hard contract to make a decision on, and that to me that means it's good. And had Wacha completely ate it, he still would have those pitches. If Wacha was hurt all year, and didn't increase his value at all, there's a 3-year, $18.5 million option that they could have been talking about picking up, and then we would have had a healthy Wacha coming into next year. So just a little credit to a guy we like to bash a lot.
Sure. Hey, AJ Preller does plenty of things good and plenty of things bad. The thing is, he's done a lot of small to medium things good, and then he's offered some of the biggest, worst contracts in the history of the sport.
Yeah. Man.
So it's a mixed bag, and it's always going to be a mixed bag. So just bottom line, right now, Rafe, you're on negotiate, or if that doesn't happen, release to free agency.
Yeah, I just can't quite say, hey, again, it's like, it's hard without the context of, are they going to trade Soto and try and bring in some more starting pitching, like this, that, or the other? You know what I mean? Like there's all these other factors, like on its face for a team that's cutting payroll. Like, I just don't think that you can just sign up for $16 million per. I would try and honestly give him the Lugo contract, like the 3-year, $30 million, and see if he'll bite at that. And if not, then just be like, I don't know. Yeah. What about you guys?
Yeah, Chris, where do you land bottom line?
Bottom line, I'm thank you for the great season, Michael. We've got Ruben Niebla that's going to be able to find a pitch with a lot of other guys that spin different things. So I'm trusting that. I'm trusting my staff. I'm trusting Gulp, the farm system, and just saying, if I'm trying to spend as little as I can and replace Blake Snell, then Michael Wacha, again, is a luxury, and we're not in the luxury business this offseason.
Okay. First thing is, should we be signing Ruben Niebla to a 5-year extension?
Yes.
Because I kind of feel like that would be a really smart. If you gave him $15 million, you might get him for the rest of his life, and that might be the best thing that happens for the Padres if he's extracting millions of dollars of value out of random pitchers and C-flight pitchers in Major League Baseball. That's where our money should go. So that's the best idea I'm going to say on the podcast. The Padres should sign Ruben Niebla to a multi-million-dollar, multi-year contract that is exclusive of who the manager is, who the general manager is, who the president of baseball operations is. Give him an individual key card that cannot be canceled.
Yeah, find a family member of him that does great baked goods. Give them a store at Petco, like whatever it takes, man.
Whatever it takes. I like that. And then of the three of us, I'm going to land as, I guess, the most liberal, because I will say that I agree with Raphie, offer him the Lugo deal. I agree with Raphie, try to renegotiate to a price point and year point that is mutually manageable. But I might consider, if that didn't happen right away, I might go ahead. Of all of these guys, this might be the one guy that I gave the money to, because it's just 2 years. It's only 2 years. You're only talking about his 31 to 32 and his 32 to 33 seasons.
Yeah.
And he's honestly been more reliable than Blake Snell. Like,
but he's
just kind of this guy. He's this guy.
His ceiling has also been way, way lower.
Way lower. Higher floor, not a lot higher, but a little higher floor, or kind of the same floor and a lower ceiling, but at a way lower cost. And that's Michael Wacha. That's just,
I don't know.
We've all got our bottom line. That's my bottom.
The floor for Wacha, I mean, he was straight up bad in 2021, and that was with the Rays, like an organization who we associate with like figuring out how to like get the most out of their guys. He had over a 5 ERA in 2021. Like he was just awful. So I think that's the floor, and that scares me. You know what I mean? So
I don't know. I feel like he's made a tweak with that changeup, man, because his homer rate had spiked to between 1.8 and 2.4 for 3 years, and now it's been the last 2 years 1.3, 1.0. Like,
let me ask you a quick would you rather. All right. These are two guys. This is what you're going to look at getting for 16 million AAV in this offseason. And the closest analog I got is Alex Cobb.
I want Wacha over Alex Cobb.
Track thinks he's going to make $15.5 million this offseason.
Did Cobb throw more innings? He's had injury issues all throughout his career.
Yeah.
Alex Cobb. I'd rather have Wacha. Alex Cobb threw 150 innings last year.
I would rather have neither, and I would rather spend under $1 million on, or $1.5 million on two guys that you might figure out one that's going to get you 90% of the performance for a 15th of the price.
Okay.
I just don't know how many of those guys exist.
Yeah,
that's true. That's fair.
I also would. Yes, I would also like to sign better pitchers than Michael Wacha for a 10th of the price, Chris. I agree.
His name's Matt Waldron, guys. He finished the year strong. He's young. He's a buck.
Oh my God. All right. I didn't think this would be the case, but is this the trickiest one?
No.
Nick Martinez. It's not the trickiest one.
I think
it's not tricky at all.
Trickiest. Yeah.
Wacha is the trickiest one. We should let Nick Martinez approach free agent. We're not going to give his club option. It's the same contract. It's the same deal.
Yeah.
So we're just saying renegotiate and no.
Different, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah. He's owed $8 million a year. He has a player option for $8 million as opposed to Wacha, I think was like 6 or 6.5. So it's slightly more money. My feeling is that Nick Martinez is pitcher Jurickson Profar this year. If he opts out, he's going to go and find that there's actually not that much more money on the free agent market than what he's currently, because he's still owed 2 years and $16 million that he can opt into. He can opt into 2 $8 million individual seasons. So I don't know that there's like a ton of teams out there that would give him more than that guaranteed. And it seems like he likes it here. So why mess it up? You know what I mean?
I think the team's going to have to give him assurances on a better, like a more solid starting rotation guarantee. Like that may be part of the renegotiation. Like if I get 10 relief appearances, you guys owe me $10 million. You know, I can see him being very concerned about being a starting pitcher, but I think you nailed it, Raphie. If he hits the open market with the year he's just had and his career performance, I don't know who's going to make a 3-year commitment to him.
Okay, well, I guess this is why. Let me just put out why I thought this was maybe a little trickier than you guys think. And I generally agree. Just like every one of these things, I generally agree with what you guys are all saying. And maybe I'm just trying to pick around the corners for the purpose of discussion, right? Because never hurts to pick around the corners to make sure that we fully understand something, as opposed to blindly rushing into our or quickly rushing into our decision. I look at Nick Martinez's last 2 years as being the kind of thing that should put Rafe and Percoda into pretzels, because you guys are always trying to find meaning out of the numbers, and the numbers are so directly contradictory as to pretty much tell you that nothing matters in the world and we should just all go eat at Arby's. So, last year, Nick Martinez was a starter who put tons of base runners on base, had a ridiculous walk rate as a starter, and then would get runners on and he would just clamp the fuck down. And he would be so nails with runners on base. And then they converted him to a reliever, and he was a pretty much dominant reliever And he was like a really kind of like squishy starter who was a fairly dominant reliever that wound up being the only pitcher who had 10 starts, 10 holds, 10 saves, or whatever it was last year. And then in the playoffs, he continued as a really clutch relief option, multi-inning relief option. This year, the very next year, Nick Martinez was so much better as a starter than he was as a reliever. As a starter, a 2.32 ERA, as a reliever, a 4.12 ERA. As a starter, a 1.07 whip. As a reliever, a 1.37 whip. 8 homers allowed as a reliever, 4 homers allowed as a starter. And when you break it down into the Baseball Reference leverage index, he progressively was worse the closer the game was. In high leverage, Nick Martinez gave up an 817 OPS and a 290 average. Medium leverage, a 694 OPS, 233 average. Low leverage, 516 OPS, 248 on base percentage, 209 average. He gave up a 900 plus OPS to the first batter he faced. And yet for like half this season, Bob Melvin only would use Nick Martinez in maximum leverage relief appearances in the 7th and 8th, 6th, even 6th inning as a fireman max leverage reliever. And he did nothing worse this year than perform as a maximum leverage high risk reliever.
I really like the split that you were talking about as starter and reliever, and further proof that we should all eat at Arby's and baseball doesn't make any sense. He actually had a higher FIP as a starting pitcher than he did as a reliever, even though as a starter, he had a 2.32 ERA, like you said, and a 4.12 ERA as a reliever. As a starter, he had a 4.01 FIP and reliever 3.86. That's because as a starter, he stranded 86.6% of his base runners this year. You know who stranded almost exactly that many base runners to lead Major League Baseball this season?
I do. Blake Snell.
That's correct. 86.7% for Blake Snell as opposed to 86.6 for Nick Martinez as a starter. You mentioned the leverage thing already. I think that's super important. I think that the team absolutely nuked the effectiveness, as you've mentioned many times this year, Craig, of just like, hey, you have the Swiss Army knife. Let's take away one of the tools on a Swiss Army knife and just shove him in this situation that doesn't really make sense. I think the really important thing to point out is that even though he had a 4.01 FIP as a starter, and that was higher than he was as a reliever, a 4.01 FIP as a starting pitcher is very good. I think the league average FIP for starters this year was like 4.42 or something like that. So, I mean, that's a above average starting pitcher. Like, I think despite the, circumstances are going to push them into using Nick Martinez as a starter regardless. But even if that weren't the case, I still think they should have given him, they should give him a shot at the starting pitcher role in 2024. But to me, it feels like all signs are pointing to like bringing up some AA and AAA arms to backfill the bullpen and then putting Nick Martinez back into the starting rotation. And I think I'm okay with that.
I am too. But I don't think it's at the club option. I think it's at the player option, which I anticipate him exercising.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're both right. And when you said, Raphie, that he's this year's Profar, I think you nailed it, man. Like the only difference is I remember arguing bitterly with Gennaro at this point last year we were still in the playoffs at this point last year, but a few weeks later, about Profar, because I was like, no, he needs to opt in. And John was like, you're crazy. Look at the projections, 4 years, 60 million or whatever. I knew that Profar wasn't going to be worth that on the market because the modern market is so much more analytical than the old market that we grew up with used to be, where a guy like Profar would get that deal. But I really, the one thing is, unlike Jurickson Profar, Nick Martinez has shown for multiple seasons an ability to do multiple things for a team. So he could be of value to a smart analytical team that says we're going to, but are they really going to pay him more money than $8 million a year. I like the Nick Martinez fit to stay in San Diego, and I like it at the level of decline the club option, let him profar it. If he wants to leave, maybe he'll get DFA'd and we'll pick him up in September when we need to go on a run. But I don't know if it'll be a direct one-to-one comparison to Profar in that sense. But at $8 million, I think Nick Martinez is a great guy to have in the team, and I think there is value to a player who is willing to make, double-digit starts and double-digit relief appearances. And if he becomes a full-time starter, I quite frankly expect him to put runners on base and to not strand them at an 87% clip next year, and to pitch like the mediocre, gutsy, team-oriented pitcher that he is.
Shall I throw a would you rather at you?
Please.
Spot Track has this pitcher at an $8 million projected AAV for their free agency, their upcoming free agency, and that pitcher is Lance Lynn.
Oh, I'd rather have our guy. Wouldn't you?
Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
At $8 million, I would rather have Nick Martinez than Lance Lynn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, with that, we can wrap up the show. I'd rather not have Lance Lynn. At any rate. So I feel like we could all reach a chord at that level. So just in recap, Matt Carpenter is going to get $5.5 million, and the Padres should do everything that they can to ensure that $5.5 million is not to play for the San Diego Padres next year. Seth Lugo is likely to get a contract that the Padres should not offer him. But if it landed around $330, it will be tricky. Michael Wacha might be worth 2 years, $32 million, but the Padres hot tub official stance is probably we can find a better value out there, maybe, and it's probably worth the risk because Wacha's ultimate upside is 130 innings of fourth starter pitching that probably doesn't translate to the playoffs very effectively. And Nick Martinez is a really cool, nice little, bottom 8 player to have on your roster. And probably it's a perfect fit at $8 million, and probably everyone should agree on that. And we should see Nick Martinez back for a third year in a Padres uniform next year. Any disagreement, or did I lay that out right?
Laid it out perfectly, man. But we are going to talk in the future a little bit more about starting pitching to a greater degree of detail.
Absolutely. We're going to continue with player reviews. We're going to continue with decision reviews, and we're going to continue to talk about the alternatives and the options that confront AJ Preller and the Padres this off season. But for now, that's going to wrap this episode of Padres Hot Tub. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, please give us a 5-star review, written review. Please bump up our numbers. Are we still at like 4.3 or 4.4 or something? Come on, let's get at least up where someone would hire us as their Uber driver. Please do that. We appreciate that. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. Single best way you can give us a 1-star review and become a big patron, and we'll be fine with that. I mean, it's weird, but we'd still be fine with that ultimately after a couple of months. I think we'd agree it's okay. So you can do that too if you really want to be a sicko. And otherwise, for Chris Reed and Raphie Cantor, I'm Craig Elsten. Thanks for supporting Padres Hot Tub. Go Padres.